I said, how can you go on about police brutality in the UK when you're working for the Iranian regime, whose police is far more brutal? So, the whole room just erupted, and they were trying to make me leave. And of course, I wasn't going to go because I don't think I'd done anything wrong. I just asked a question in the meeting. Had to call the UK Parliament police to get me out.
Because you asked the question.
So suddenly the UK police became their friends.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Tousi TV. We're joined by a special guest, the investigative journalist and the documentary maker, Potkin Azarmer. Welcome to the show, Potkin, because this is actually going to be an important video, important interview. It's about what happened last night in Rochdale, the by-election. And of course, as I call him, Jihadi George, or George Galloway, has now won the election. And Potkin has some personal experience dealing with that man. Welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you, Mayor, and hello. I actually call him a man for hire, really, because I've followed him for years, and he's just about worked for every dictator you can think of. He used to be very pally with Saddam Hussein. Do you
Yeah,
remember that use of the word indefatigability when he
yeah,
went to see Saddam Hussein? And you think, like, who else could he find even more brutal than Saddam Hussein?
yeah,
And of course, his son, Uday Hussein, he went to see him as well. He was very pally with him.
yeah.
The guy was a psychopath, Uday Hussein,
That's true.
an
Yeah,
absolute deranged psychopath. And also, then he was very pally with Fidel Castro.
yeah.
I remember he boasted once saying, "I'm one of the few people who's seen Fidel Castro naked." I don't know what they were doing. He didn't give any context, but
Why
that
does he
pretty
always
much.
get close to these leaders? There's a picture of him with Hania, the Hamas leader, also like almost like
Yeah,
kissing each
the
other.
Hamas leaders,
He's always
Hugo Chavez, and of course he used to work for Press TV,
yes, Iran. Yeah.
and which is the English-speaking outlet of Iran state media.
Mhm.
And he was working for Press TV right during the uh, height of the crackdown on post-election protesters in 2010. Um, and He was having a meeting in the parliament in one of the committee rooms about Palestine. There was
Yeah.
Hamas protests back then as well for Gaza, and I went along to the meeting with a friend of mine, and he started going on about like police brutality in UK and how they were all held up somewhere for some time, and the weather was like very sort of like hot, and they were suffering because of police brutality in UK. And then I just couldn't take it any longer. I had to say something. I couldn't
Yeah.
stay silent. So I said, how can you go on about police brutality in UK when you're working for the Iranian regime, whose police is far more brutal?
Yeah.
And look at what it's doing to the peaceful protesters in Iran. It's shooting at them. It's killing them. It's imprisoning them.
Yeah.
It's torturing them. Um, and then that was it. Everything, the whole room just erupted, and they were trying to make me leave. And of course, I wasn't going to go because I don't think I'd done anything wrong. I just asked a question in the meeting. And then the same people that were going on about police brutality in UK had to call the UK Parliament police to get me out.
Because you asked the question.
So suddenly the UK police became their friends. And also after that, and also they told the police. I remember they told the police. Galloway had told the police to hold me right until he's well clear from the Parliament building.
What
So
drama queen?
I was held till like 11, I think 11 midnight in the Parliament before I was allowed to leave. And then sometime after this, he had an interview with Ahmadinejad, who was the president of Iran at the time.
Yeah.
And to endear himself to him, he made up this cock and bull story that he was attacked by opposition activists in the parliament and he had to have like police protection,
Oh
uh,
no.
which was complete nonsense. And he said that I'm saying that because, and they attacked me because of my support for your election campaign, he said, I'm saying that so you know where I'm coming from. And then Andrew Neil confronted him once on a TV program and asked him about this. He said, "Is it true that you said this?" And he denied it.
Oh, what?
The video is there. I'm going to upload something on my YouTube channel later, and you can
Yeah.
you can take anything you
I'll
want
share
from
it.
there.
Yeah.
And you can see, I mean, he's clearly saying, for my support for your election campaign. And then he's saying to Andrew Neil, he's denying it, and he's saying, like, we can both put £1,000 of our money here, and we can have it. We can have a bit. I don't know why Andrew Neil didn't take him on that, because he was clearly lying.
But it's
And
all it's all on record. The parliamentary
it's on
incident is on
record.
record, and
Yeah, the video is there, and the man can still lie through his teeth. And another incident that happened, Mayor, might be interesting for you, is there was a viewing of a film, the House of Sands or something, and it was about the Saudi royal family. And I've gone along there, and he happened to be there as well. And then after the movie, there was a drinks reception, and he was there with his wife, and I sort of like bumped into him, and I said to him, "Do you remember me?" And he turned around and said, "Do I have to call the police right now? Are you going to do anything, or am I going to call the police?" And I said, "Listen, you're with your wife. This is a different setting. Of course, I'm not going to do anything. I just said hello, like, do you remember me, sort of thing." And then the guy is so pretentious, because they were serving alcoholic drinks there, right? He refused to go. Now there were other Muslims there, because it was mainly like a Middle Eastern audience for the movie that were there, and some of them, they didn't drink, but it
yeah,
didn't stop them from going to the drinks reception just because they were serving alcoholic drinks. They were just having soft drinks. They weren't having alcoholic drinks. But this guy is so pretentious
mm.
to to show himself more Muslim than
than the Muslims.
than a jihadi Muslim. He was making out that because they're serving alcoholic drinks in the reception, he's not going to go there. Now, I remember this is the same guy that when he was pally with Saddam Hussein, he used to take in bottles of whiskey, because Saddam used to be very keen on drinking, finest scotch and
yeah,
everything. So the guy, he can mold himself, and he can recreate himself, and he can lie through his teeth. And what a disgrace for the people of Rochdale, as if like their track record has been, I mean, we know about what happened in Rochdale, and
yeah,
the sort of representatives they had before that allowed one of the most, the most scandalous child,
yeah. Abuse. Yeah,
child abuse thing. And
mm,
they've elected once again an absolute joker. I
yeah.
mean,
It's
people of Rochdale should be really ashamed of themselves for their
well,
choice of candidates.
Well, the insane situation is that they once again fell into the trap of by-elections because obviously it was a low turnout as usual as a by-election, but 40% voted because of first past the post. 40% of that small crowd. This is not really justifying saying the rest of Rochdale did nothing wrong. The rest of Rochdale didn't turn up to vote against him. They could have stopped him. The majority didn't vote for Galloway, but the majority also didn't come out to vote anyway.
Yeah,
So that's the problem.
that's right. Yeah, but those people that voted for him,
Yeah,
I mean, it's a disgrace. And but also, you wonder, why did the rest of them stay silent? This is the problem. You see, this silent majority.
yeah,
As long as there's this silent majority, this is exactly what was happening in Iran in 1979. The
yes,
revolutionaries were not the majority. There was a silent majority, but the silent majority were at home. They were staying at home. They weren't coming
mm,
out to confront the
yeah.
revolutionaries.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Isn't it what we are saying now about the Western civilization, Britain, for example? Because not to exaggerate right now, saying right now the country is lost, but we now have people who literally hate the system and the country, and it's Marxists as well as Islamists and all this stuff. And for a long time, we're still going to have a lot of people with their heads buried in the sand because they have their daily problems and they're not really paying attention. Because you mentioned 1979 in Iran, the same thing happened. What's your message to people in this country? What should we do?
it's so reminiscent of 1979 in Iran. It's
Mm.
all those alarm bells that were ringing back then are ringing in my head again. You have this similar thing: the Islamists going to bed with the leftists. You have the incompetent establishment that just can't deal with the extremists, and they're sort of like, and the extremists just gaining more influence, spreading that network, and just
Yeah,
getting stronger. It's very, very similar. I didn't think it would ever happen here, but it is. And really, the silent majority in Britain have to wake up soon before it's too late.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I mean, there have been people like Tommy Robinson. I've noticed you've interviewed him before. I mean, he's been vilified. He's suffered. And honestly, what is it that he said that isn't coming true?
exactly.
They're just not bring themselves to it. They're too scared to say the sort of things that he was saying a good few years ago.
Yeah. Well, when he was
Um,
saying it back then, they were saying it's a conspiracy theory. There's no issue with multiculturalism. The problem with the conspiracy theories is that when usually you're proven right early, and that's the problem. You're right too early.
yeah,
And that I think that's the issue, of course. But obviously, for those who don't know, Potkin also his background is also Iranian in terms of ethnicity and everything else. Like myself and my mother, but obviously he's a British freedom fighter here. To again, people like Potkin, people like myself and my mother and everybody. We're trying to wake up the rest of the Western Europeans, saying, "Don't turn Britain into another Iran," just like what Potkin said. But no one's
absolutely.
listening.
No, and it was when I first heard about you, it was just so encouraging to know someone similar to my background exists who is seeing through all what's happening and has the courage to speak out. But it's just there's still too few of us. We really need to somehow wake up the silent majority. Maybe it'd be easier for us to do it because it's harder for them, I think, to accuse us of being like right wing extremists and racist and things like
Yeah,
that.
but
Because I mean, I was a member of the anti-apartheid movement when I
yeah.
was at student, so it's going to be hard for them to accuse me of being a far right thug, which is like their normal labeling thing when they can't argue, when they can't debate.
Yeah, but they're very creative. They find new things, so they can't really always call me far right, but they now call me a Mossad agent and a Zionist shill. Like that, we've heard
Oh
that.
yeah, yes, of
I,
course,
I
yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
appreciate their creativity. Like, oh, you can't call me a white nationalist, but you're gonna call me a Mossad.
I've told that a few times. Actually. I actually used to do Israeli martial arts, so maybe they've got a good reason as well.
Yeah, well, I've been encouraged to start learning Krav Maga because I
Well,
keep getting.
I was doing Kapap, the military version of it, and it was
Oh,
very very effective. I've done a
ah,
few martial arts, and I thought that was one of the most effective ones.
well,
It's
no,
interesting. I remember
I'm
we used to train at a school, and just like with any martial arts, I mean, if you do like Korean martial arts, you normally have the Korean flag. If you do Japanese martial
yeah,
arts, you normally have the Japanese martial art. So the instructor had put the Israeli flag in the school, and the people living in the council flats that could see the school hall where we were training, they saw the Israeli flag, and they'd complained to the school.
what?
This is 2 years ago. This is like about 10 years ago. They
Wow.
complained to the school about the Israeli flag, and he had to remove the Israeli flag. Otherwise, the school wouldn't let him use it for training. It was, and
That's so weird.
we had Arabs, we had Muslims
Yeah.
training in the class. The religion was not an issue. This it was just this is where the martial art comes from. It's just another country.
Yeah, people these days just shout at everything. They just get have meltdowns over. Well, there was
Do you know,
someone.
Mario, I've seen a few protests in my time. I mean,
Mm,
I remember, sort of like vaguely remember the Vietnam
mm,
protests, the anti-apartheid protests,
mm,
the anti-poll tax
mm.
protests, all that. But I've never ever remember protesters being so ignorant about the topic that they're protesting about,
True.
and yet so opinionated.
So
I
true.
mean,
So true.
we've all seen that. You've probably seen that video where you got Constantine asking one of them like, "What's the socialist intifada?" He says, "I don't know. Someone just gave me this placard."
Yeah, I'm just holding it.
And I mean, like you, I've been going to these like Hamas protesters, and I ask them a simple question. I say, "Can you tell me why Hamas hasn't held an election for 17 years? No Palestinian under 35 years 35 years old has ever voted.
True.
So how can Hamas be representative of the Palestinians in Gaza? They don't know about it. It's
No,
the first time they hear about it.
it is
You would
interesting.
think
Yeah.
if you go on a protest march, you find out a few things about it. You hear both sides. You don't just like listen to one side. You try to hear both sides. You educate yourself, and if someone asks you a question, instead of like running away or reacting, say, "Oh, you're harassing me! You're harassing me," you actually have a debate with them, and you show that you know your subject. But they don't.
This is the
They're
product. This is the
completely ignorant about
product
the
of the
topic.
new generation, new education systems, and everything else. Because back in the day, in the 70s and 80s, even with the far left and any other group protesting, you could go in there, you could have a debate, you could have an argument,
Yes,
and both
yes,
sides have convictions. Now it's
yes,
not just about these guys; it's also the BLM movement, the eco-militant activists, the proper ones,
yeah.
the kids who go to these protests. And I spoke to them. They don't actually know why they're there. They just say, "I heard that we're saving the planet." That's all they need to know, because critical
It's
thinking doesn't exist in the education system anymore.
Yeah, it's become fashionable. they've heard about their fathers having been involved in some protest or something, and they just want to do something as well. They want to have like
Yeah.
some memories to tell their children that I was in this protest, I was such a hero. But they're not. They really are not. They're on the wrong side.
Do you think it's because back in the day, even until like previous generation, in each country you had veterans and grandfathers saying, "When I was in Korea, when I was in Vietnam." Nowadays, because things are relatively peaceful in the West, there are no wars in the West. The new generations, this is their version. Like, I'm gonna grow up and tell people I was in London, Trafalgar Square protesting.
Absolutely,
I'm guessing.
absolutely, you hit the nail on the head. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, Podkin. Yes, obviously, give me your information and all the stuff. So I'll put in the description in terms of the channel and social media.
Yeah.
Yeah, check him out, his work, and then we'll see where we are with this country.
Thank you very much, Maria. Thanks again for calling me.
Thank
Cheers.
you very much. Have a good day.
Keep in touch. Bye bye.